So, Mark Carney, Canadian Prime Minister, right? So he's gonna scrap most of the U.S. tariffs. I heard about it. I don't know any details, so this video is gonna be pretty new to me as to you guys. It's from CBC News. CBC News, as we all know, is liberal bias, so they're gonna definitely be on the side of Carney. What I'm thinking about it, without knowing the details, I think it's a little too late. I think he should never go with retaliatory tariffs. Or he should have been smarter about it. We were number 1 on the US list who to negotiate. And now they don't even return our calls. And him dropping off these tariffs, it's not a promise of having a trade deal. He's doing it as a sign of a goodwill towards President Trump. But after those many mistakes, or that many mistakes he made, Mark Carney, might be too little too late. Like, he should have signed a deal during the G7 in June. But no, he's trying to renegotiate Kuzma. And now again, there's some news how he's trying to screw US over by dealing with Mexico. I don't know. Anyway, let's see.
For the economy and Canadians. David Cochrane is the host of CBC's Power and Politics, and he leads off our coverage this hour from Ottawa. So David, welcome, and thank you for being here with us.
No problem. It's good to see you, Hillary.
I'm hoping that you can walk us through what we heard from the Prime Minister and anything in particular that stood out to you.
Well, look, this is a pretty significant shift for the government of Canada in its approach with this. To this point, the full large-scale review and renegotiation of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement has been hovering over this in the background, set to formally begin in 2026. And sort of the more urgent focus has been on trying to get the United States to rescind the sort of arbitrary and punitive tariffs that are really hammering key sectors like lumber, the auto sector, steel, and aluminum.
Okay, let's pause right over here. The reason why we don't have a trade deal yet, the reason why we have higher tariffs, 35% right now, is because Mark Carney's trade party or whatever who's doing this trade deal is trying to renegotiate Kuzma. So it's not in the background. It's the whole reason why US decided not to sign the deal with Canada. Why Canada refused to sign the deal with US. It's not in the background. That's the whole reason why we didn't get the deal since April till today. So it's a very important thing to mention. Yes, hopefully right now Canada finally gets some common sense and be like, okay, let's not talk about Kuzma. Let's talk about what's going on right now. Let's continue before I say more.
And, starting with former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, there is a series of countermeasures put in place. We've seen various efforts to try to appease the U.S. president on things like with a response to fentanyl, dropping the digital services tax, which was a source of some irritation in the Canada-U.S. relationship. But, the announcement
Again, BS. Dropping the digital tax that Mark Carney actually put into effect in order to hurt US. President Trump asked him to pause digital service tax going into effect. And Mark Carney refused. And then he just scrapped it. But that's not a sign of a goodwill. It's a sign of weakness.
Today that the counter tariffs that have been applied against a range of goods under the USMCA will be dropped effective September 1 is a step back from the so-called elbows up posture that has been in place really since the federal election. The Prime Minister made the argument today that this is matching what the U.S. has done, and when it comes to goods that are compliant under the Continental Trade Agreement, that is accurate, but it is not matching the much higher tariff rates that exist on things like steel and aluminum, which are 50% imposed by the U.S. and only 25% by Canada. And the argument has been made that even with the situation Canada is in right now, it still has the best trade deal and best trade access to the United States. That is true, but Canada is unquestionably in a worse situation than it was at the start of this year, at the time of the federal election, and on the day of the Oval Office meeting, because tariffs have only increased since then, not decreased since then. So laying out that...
it's like saying, hey, we're better than some European states, while our people are starving over here because of the prices, which again is very interesting how there's more tariffs on the Canadian goods going into the US, but somehow it affected the price of the groceries in Canada, and the government doesn't care. Wait, so now are the prices actually gonna drop down now? I don't think so. I think they're just going to keep it for normal people, right?
This was necessary to sort of remove some irritants in the relationship and move things forward on the bigger picture Canada, U.S., Mexico trade relationship. That's the justification from the Prime Minister today. And that may be a legitimate argument in the real politics of trade negotiations with a president like Donald Trump. It's going to be a difficult one in the domestic politics, where this will undoubtedly be characterized as a retreat, a concession, and maybe a little bit of a surrender by the Prime Minister today.
No, for sure.
And David, while you and I have been speaking here, we just have a press release saying that the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, will be speaking on all of this coming up at 2:30. So less than 30 minutes from now, if all of this goes ahead on schedule. So given that, I'm wondering what it is you expect to hear from the opposition on all of this while we await that announcement from Poilievre.
Well, look, so much of the trade analysis in this country has been done in hockey analogies and elbow positioning terms, and we've heard this criticism from Pierre Poilievre as he sought his re-election to the House of Commons during the by-election out in Alberta, and I suspect we'll hear more of it from him today, that this is an elbows-down capitulation by the Prime Minister, that they've given on the digital services tax, they've given on the counter tariffs, they've given, on timelines. Because you remember, Hillary, like the language today from the Prime Minister was that him and the President, who by all accounts had a good conversation yesterday, Donald Trump says that, Mark Carney says that they've agreed to intensify their discussions. Well, we heard that back in Kananaskis at the G7, where they set a 30-day sort of horizon to try to settle all of it.
Again, G7 Kananaskis, they actually had a trade deal, but Canada wanted to push for CUSMA, for renegotiation of CUSMA. So they didn't end up signing anything. You know what it kind of reminds me? It reminds me Zelensky, Trump, and mineral deal. It had pretty much the same outcome, but in this case it was, well, even in Zelensky case, it was wasn't the issue of President Trump being unreasonable. It was the other party just having different expectations and being unreasonable. Yeah.
And here we are well past that 30-day deadline, and things are not settled. Canada is changing its position. The argument, from the government is that they need to sort of live with the short-term difficulties that exist right now to preserve that long-term access to the U.S.
What are short-term difficulties? It's been going on for, 4 months now, the tariffs, and by them dropping the retaliatory tariffs, who's gonna pay? I thought the tariffs are supposed to support all of these industries that are affected by tariffs, right? Retaliatory tariffs are supposed to support the industries that are affected by American tariffs. So it would be steel, aluminum, all of this, right? But since we dropped the retaliatory tariffs, that's a mouthful. Who's gonna support them? Are we just gonna give up on them? Or is it going to be taxpayers? Because I'm sorry, I don't agree with that either. Like, we're paying so much taxes, and most of these taxes are going to causes that have nothing to do with Canada. And obviously, aluminum industry and all of it has something to do with Canada. But in the end, it's incompetence of Mark Carney and his government why we're facing it. I don't want to pay for his mistakes, to be honest.
Market that even if it's not at zero tariff under the free trade regime that we've existed under the last number of decades, Donald Trump has been determined to disrupt that for every single trading partner the United States has on the face of the earth. And Canada remains in a more competitive position. And that, again, that's true. That is cold comfort for steel workers, auto workers, and people in softwood lumber who are getting absolutely hammered by what the U.S. is doing. So I would suspect that you will see Pierre Poilievre making those points, criticizing Mark Carney for his failure to do this, stating that this was the implicit promise of Mark Carney to Canadians in the election, and that there's been an inability by the Prime Minister in the time that he's been in power to resolve this. You know, whether Canadians blame the Prime Minister for being unable to completely change the mind of a president like Donald Trump in the time that he's had, I don't know, but that is...
You're such a dude, really? It's not about President Trump, it's about Mark Carney making mistakes. It's about him proposing insane trade deals. And it's about him not looking for the different trading partners. Like on April 1st or whatever, well, I think the tariffs went into effect in April. So in April, he should have gone to Europe. He should have signed the trade deals with them. He should have still negotiated with US. But what did he do? How many trade deals we have? We don't even have a trade deal with Mexico. Even Mexico's like, nope, we don't want to deal with you. So yes, I understand that maybe you can't affect the US, but you have so many different countries. Like I personally visited 52 countries. And that's not the whole world. But look, you have at least 52 civilized countries. And you didn't do it. You didn't do it. You didn't get anything done. It's a failure.
The argument that I think the opposition is going to prosecute here.
Okay, and David, things are moving fast here because we also just have a statement coming in from Ontario's Premier Doug Ford. So I'd like to read a little bit of it and then have you react to it. So it says that he spoke with the Prime Minister today after his announcement. So I'm imagining this conversation happened just in the last little while. He says, spoke with him to stress the need for an agreement with the United States that provides relief to our tariff-impacted sectors, including steel, auto, forestry, and copper. If the federal government can't achieve that, they need to hit back hard against U.S. tariffs and provide additional supports for the workers and businesses in these sectors. So I'm wondering if you can react to this and then more broadly, how you think this will impact some of the provinces, what we might hear from other premiers.
Well, Doug Ford is particularly exposed, or the economy of the province he leads here in Ontario is particularly exposed because of the steel sector and the auto sector most of all. He has been sort of the bad cop in this, you know, in terms of like they've pulled all American liquor off of the shelves. The LCBO is the biggest bulk buyer of alcohol on the planet. And he has, you know, loudly advocated for the dollar-for-dollar retaliation, you know, and as big a hit as you can deliver to the U.S. economy. So the challenge here, I think, for the Prime Minister is going to be if that broad coalition of supporters that were around him in the run-up to this starts to fray and unravel over this. Like, clearly, this is not the approach Doug Ford wants Mark Carney to take, or at least that's the public posture he's adopting. But Mark Carney is the one at the negotiating table, so he has a sense of maybe what is necessary compared to what Premier Ford has. I don't know, but we're also seeing people like Lana Payne, the national president of Unifor, you know, the largest private sector union in the country, you know, that represents a lot of the auto workers. And she is frustrated by this. You know, she was critical of the Prime Minister earlier this week with the Air Canada decision where they sort of ended the strike and sent it to binding arbitration. She is frustrated by this, essentially saying that this is a concession to a bully. And
yeah, no, the Air Canada thing was ridiculous. I was actually very close to when they sent the railway workers back to work, right? When was it, last year? August, September? When railway workers from CN and CPKC went on strike and then they were mandated to return to work. And that was ridiculous. That was a moment where Canada lost some of its freedom. And I'm really, really glad to see Air Canada and was it COOP Union? CUP? I'm not sure right now. But I'm very glad that they pushed against the government and refused to come in, because what is the union good for if they can just get order from government to return to work and then you get shitty deal, which what CN and CPKC ended up getting was shitty deal.
Will not hit a magical threshold of appeasement that will make all of this go away. So there is the defiance that people like Premier Ford want to see, that Lana Payne want to see, and then there is what is necessary to make progress with Donald Trump, and whether you can calibrate these things in a way that you can make progress with the United States while holding your political coalition together, not eroding the trust of Canadians who have given you a mandate to deal with this issue above all other issues, all while trying to make your economy, give it a level of resilience to the whims of what is coming out of the White House right now, because key sectors are getting hammered. The Prime Minister made the point today that the days of...
Nah, man. And this is what's the issue with Canada. We're always blaming US and President Trump. That's not it. You have other options. You have other trading partners you can contact. You had 4 months to do it. Now no one wants to deal with you because guess what? Everyone has a trading deals with US now. It's not about President Trump. It's about incompetent leadership.
Deeper integration with the United States, the point he's made throughout this year, they're completely over. You need to look to other avenues. And even as you engage in what really, Hillary, is an exercise in loss mitigation, just trying to reduce the harm. Because there's going to be some harm out of this. It seems very clear. Donald Trump is intent on doing this. It's a tough political pill for people to swallow, and the Prime Minister is going to have to make that argument to Canadians.
Okay, yeah, like I said, I'm not surprised. CBC bias towards Mark Carney. Of course, they're going to have his side. Of course, they're going to be like, oh yeah, President Trump, US screwed us over. No, it wasn't them. They didn't help us. But it's just tip of the iceberg. You had options what to do, but you decided not to do it. You don't put all of the eggs in one basket, especially when that basket is not really cooperating with you. Actually, again, I think US was cooperating. I think Mark Carney just got too greedy. Yep. Mark Carney definitely got too greedy.